Before the commercial break, we told you how excited that we were to be able to talk to you about a little bit of a really important part of history with a woman who knows firsthand how it happened.
A piece of history, yeah, right from the Midlands. Ginny Dent Brant is the author of the new book called Finding True Freedom, and her dad was Harry Dent, who actually worked for not only President Nixon, several other presidents as an advisor.
Yes,
who else did he work for?
He worked for President Ford and then President Bush.
Now, you are originally from Columbia, but thanks to Dad, you spent quite a bit of time in D.C.
Yes, I've lived a lot of places.
What was that experience like? Obviously, you are one of a very few selection of people that can say you were in the mix in D.C. Your dad was working with the president. What was that whole time like?
Well, it was a wonderful opportunities that we had. We got to go to White House dinners. We got to go to the Easter egg roll. We got to hang Christmas ornaments on the White House Christmas tree. We got to do a lot of things that people don't get to do.
Now, your dad was called the Southern Strategist, and in your book you talk a lot about that.
Well, I do, because he was the political strategist that built the Republican Party in the South.
What are some of the major feelings that he would have about, if he could advise the president today, what are some of the key things you think he would be thinking about what was going on today in politics?
I think his first advice would be spiritual, because my father went through a spiritual transformation that drastically affected his life, and he ended up in full-time ministry for 25 years after his political career. So I think his first advice to any president today would be spiritual advice. He would say, you know, at a time when things aren't going our way, we have so many tides against us, it's time to look to God for help and not shut him out of the National Day of Prayer or every part of our life. We need to ask God's protection and guidance on our country as we have in all the previous years. So I think his first advice would be spiritual. Politically, he'd get into that too. That would be secondary, but I think he would say, you know, you really need to move away from government control. Let the people have the control where it is local. He was a big believer in state and local control.
Let's talk a little bit more about why you decided to write your book.
When I went with my dad to Romania in 1998, and I saw all that his ministry had done, helping the country to recover from communism, as well as the churches to come to the surface from the underground, I was overwhelmed at the goodness of God. I had prayed for my dad for many years, and to see my prayers answered far beyond what I ever dreamed was more than I could ask for and think. I knew when I went to Romania that I would one day write this book, and the chapters of the book became to focus, you know, through my mind. But after he died a few years ago, and I read the glowing obituaries about all he did with his life, and then I read the Washington Post, and they talked about his life as if it was only the political life. And I said, oh, they did not know my dad, and the changes he made, and the things that he did that were going to count for eternity. So my book tells the whole story, the political, the Watergate crisis, his spiritual transformation, how that came about, what God did in his life, and what he did through his life in ministry for 25 years.
I think he would be so proud of the way you are honoring his memories. Not many daughters can say, hey, I've written a novel to honor my dad. That is so wonderful. I know a lot of people would like to meet you and hear more of your story. Where can they come out and get a copy of your book and get to chat with you in person?
Tomorrow I will be at Books A Million at Trenum Plaza from 4 to 6, and then next Friday, November 12th, at Family Christian Store at Harbison from 5:30 to 7:30.
Such a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
Story. I'm so glad you're sharing it.
Thanks
so much.
Thanks for being our friend today. All right, folks.